All right, so took a little trip out to Cumberland, BC. So today we're riding the Forbidden Druid. This is the redesign of the Druid with 130 millimeters of travel out back and a 150 fork. It's now sporting a high pivot virtual design instead of the single pivot high pivot from before. So there's a lot of benefits to that, and I'm excited to see how it feels. The old bike was a ton of fun, but hopefully this one's even better. So far, the 77-degree C-tube angle is climbing super nice. It's funny because this has a 480 reach, but again, as I mentioned in the slash video, it doesn't really feel that long with the real steep C-tube. This wide bar, especially around corners, almost gives that real upright ride, which just doesn't feel like it could be as comfy for longer climbs, but it's nice and upright for your lower back, so that's good. I feel like I keep almost hitting my knees with this bar when I make these switchbacks. Currently we're riding a pretty mellow climbing trail, which is nice. Won't be breathing too hard, hopefully. Other stats with this bike is it's sporting a 65-degree head tube angle, which for a 130, 150 bike, I think is fine, but definitely is a bit conservative to where some brands are going. The rear center's relatively short, which is nice, especially since it gets longer as you go through this travel. But before we can see how well it descends, we got to get up this climb. Before we get too far into it, I want to thank Gravity MTB for the demo. They are Forbidden's demo spot, so if you're in the area, check them out. This bike's in great shape, which is nice. No real rattles, solid build. It is the little bit less expensive build, which is still real expensive, but it's got that GX axis as well as a Lyric up front, looks like a Select up front, and a Super Deluxe, guessing Select as well, out back. I don't see a climbing switch on this one, so that'll be sweet. And we got the code bronze. Yeah, the last new pair of codes on that slash seem to perform well, so we'll see how these do. The one thing I'm slightly concerned about is it is set up currently with a EXO front tire and an EXO Plus rear tire, so not a ton of puncture protection or support in those sidewalls. That said, it climbs real lively. And on that side of things, I'm definitely noticing that upper pulley noise, especially as I get into the more climbing side of the cassette. I don't know if that's just where we're all going to end up with these high pivot bikes, but it was nice how quiet the Da Vinci was, but this is still a much more sprightly climber. Definitely rides more like a trail bike than a full-on gravity sled, which it should. This is not the Dreadnought, this is the Druid. But yeah, having fun. We'll keep climbing and see how things go. All right, so after a lot of good climbing, how's this thing rank? Well, we'll start with switchbacks. I'm gonna give it an A- there, mostly because the reach is quite short and I found myself hitting my knees on tight switchbacks, and I didn't even find very tight switchbacks. So the weight distribution is great for getting around those quick switchbacks. It's just a little tight. Next, we're gonna do traction. So definitely a great thing here. You know, a lot of bikes have gotten so much better for efficiency and traction and balancing the two, and this has got a great balance. Going to give it a there. But then efficiency, that's where I'm going to dock it a little bit, pop it down to an A- again, you know, maybe even a B+. The pulley is very noticeable, and you start feeling it as soon as you get into the higher range of the cassette. And that body position that I've mentioned a few times, being short for a shorter travel bike, really delivers that bear on a tricycle look. So that's just my thoughts. Maybe a longer stem would help. Maybe I should size up. I'm on the large of the S3, but not very tall. 5'11", 170 pounds. So I don't feel I should be on an XL. But yeah, overall, we got an A- for switchbacks, an A for traction, and a B+ for overall efficiency and body position. Mostly because of that added drag from the pulley and the relatively short seated reach. There you have it. So how's the Druid V2 descend? Well, this is a trail bike, and it descends very much like any trail bike should. There's often this idea that bikes feel like they have more travel or punch above their weight class. I would say this one's right in its weight class, and that's a good thing because it allows the bike to climb super well and not be anything slow. But it also means that when you are getting into some pretty gnarly stuff, it'll handle it. Yeah, you'll have to be up more on your toes than a full-on enduro bike, but it's not like a shorter travel trail bike like a Evil Following or something. It definitely does better than that. Where this bike excels though is definitely that high-speed chunder. The way that back end gets out of the way and weirdly allows you to pump like the old bike did not. I really like that. On the jumps, the ride's a bit high, but that's another area where it really improves over its predecessor. It very much has more immediate pop or more accessible pop, whether you have it set up higher rebound or slower rebound, it goes. And lastly, on the steeps, you know, it's got that 65-degree head tube angle, but the truth is that's fine. That's plenty for most bikes. So I felt like I was really managing the steeps well with no problems. So who's this bike for? Well, this is definitely a great trail bike for a lot of areas, whether it's a bit more rolling or steep. I will say you'll unlock more of its potential at higher speeds, especially if the trail's chunky. This is a great bike for the rider who's doing everything, and it's great for the rider who wants to get out there and have some fun. Final thoughts. High pivots aren't just for downhill anymore. These shorter travel ones give you a lot of the benefits without a huge drawback. Yes, I didn't love the noise and the feeling on parts of the climb, but mostly this bike is super efficient and felt great. Nice. Definitely understand this bike a bit more after riding the terrain around here. Not that it's horribly different from some places I've ridden, but definitely a different feel specifically than Seattle or Squamish, or Bellingham for that matter.
It's a lot more Colorado with the high speed and jump. You can see so far ahead and just keep building speed, and that's really where the high pivot comes in.
When you get into the chundery stuff, that high pivot magic comes alive. and is very accessible where you don't have to ride it super hard. It loves to be really rallied into some corners. It does sit up higher than some bikes, but that can be good too. So if you're looking for a really capable trail bike, you don't want a standard Specialized or track, this could be a really good option. Or you want that high pivot, because it will help, specifically if you have some of those chunkier trails that you love to ride. So check out Forbidden, and thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit that like button. If you need anything for yourself or your ride, definitely doing what high pivots are supposed to do. Shopping Jensen USA through the link in my description or on the channel. Does a lot to make sure I can keep riding bikes and trying to give reviews. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I respond to just about everything, and I am always happy to give you my thoughts and help out if I can. The next video is coming out Friday, so see you next week.